Still bored, so I figured I'd do another quick review. Okay, so the last one wasn't so quick, but whatever. What I have here is a piece of kit I take with me camping. It's the Sawvivor. Uh, Great little piece of gear, super light. Uh, Folds out. The blade comes out of the compartment here. These flip down. And it clips on to the end there. Then you tighten it with this little screw tightener here. Uh, awesome piece of equipment. It's great to have a saw when you're out in the woods. A couple things about it. I thought this came with an extra blade, but I went shopping. I can't find, if it did, I can't find it. And I went to the store, and the ones they were selling didn't seem to come with an extra blade, so maybe it doesn't. It would be good if it did, and I didn't see at the store that they had replacement blades for it. This thing's seen some action, so I bent that, and it's got a little bend here. The blade has a tendency to pop off, reason being that when you tighten it, you can tighten this thing for all you're worth, but as you're sawing, the blade heats up and expands. So the way you get around that, it'll also become difficult as the tension's released off the blade. The way you get around that is to tighten this little screw as it warms up. And the best way to tighten it is to put it down on a log or something and push down with your body weight, forcing these two ends closer together. That'll relieve some of the tension on the screw so you can tighten it up. It's still pretty annoying when you're out there trying to cut through a piece of wood. The other thing is, too, it's a pretty short stroke. Sometimes that's a good thing because you don't have a lot of space to work with when you're cutting. The log's tipped over. You might have it propped up against something, but it's not like you're working on a sawhorse where you have a lot of clearance. But man, you can burn your arms out sawing with this little thing because it's not very long. Ideally, you'd have a longer stroke. For one person use, okay. But if you're like me and you don't really go out camping unless you have somebody else there with you, I think I would prefer a larger saw and get two guys going on, one on each end, Because, man, especially when you got a beer in you and you realize you haven't cut enough firewood, there's nothing worse than having to get up and cut another log. Plus, being a smaller saw, you're somewhat limited in terms of the size of the wood that you can cut through. Other than that, the saw has held up very, very well. Like I say, I've had it for about a year. It's cut a lot of wood, but at this stage, I could probably use something else. I mean, and the temptation is there to really push down on it, and when you do, if you don't have this thing tightened up, the blade's going to go all wowie on you and really slow down your cutting. You don't want your blade flexing a whole lot and making basically multiple different cuts instead of going through one cut. I've used WD-40 on it to try and speed up the process. That lasts for about 30 seconds, and then you have to reapply it. Let me tell you, you can go through an awful lot of WD-40 trying to help out your saw. The other thing is, too, with a larger saw, you probably get bigger teeth, so you probably get more cutting action per stroke, per travel. So yeah, I mean, if you're really restricted in terms of weight, it's a good little saw. I'd recommend using, and I've had it out in cold weather and it's held up well. I'd recommend using gloves when you're trying to tighten this thing. I'd recommend sawing with a glove. The other thing is too, this thing gets annoying when you're because when you go to grip it, look where that is, right? I don't want to tell you how many blisters I've managed. So you're constantly trying to fiddle with this thing to try and get it into a good position so that it's not going to really kill your hand when you're doing it. Wear gloves. Dollar store gloves. Who cares? Work gloves rule. But yeah, I've had many blisters from that. But when you need a saw and you're limited by your pack size and pack weight, this will definitely do in a pinch, and I'd take it over one of those hand chainsaws any day. So yeah, not bad. Probably could be a little bit longer, a little bit toothier, longer in the tooth. Extra blades would be nice, and the screw is miserable, but it works. All right, cheers.